everybody. Welcome to your Money Map, sponsored by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm your host, Jean Chatzky. Welcome to our very first show of the year. I see some people already popping into the chat to say hello, which is fantastic. Hi to Bruce. Please let us know. And Gerard, hi to you as well. Let us know where you are. And I am so sure that you are going to have questions and comments regarding our conversation today. Hello to Chris as well, because we're talking about plans. We're talking about goals. It feels like that's one of the things that we should do at the beginning of a new year. We had a piece of research from our sponsor, the Alliance for Lifetime Income, published last year in 2022 that found that nearly a quarter of all consumers don't have any kind of financial plan. And to me, a financial plan, plans in general, are roadmaps. And until you manage to lay out your own roadmap, it is very difficult to get where you want to go. And so we are going to talk about that today, and we're going to do it with my friend Julie Morgenstern. Before I bring her in, let me just tell you a little bit about Julie, who I think I have known for 20 years. We once did a garage sale together for the Today Show, for which we traveled to Florida. She's remembering that. Julie is one of the world's leading experts on productivity and organization and time management. She's got 30 years of experience coaching individuals, professionals, and companies through disorganization and helping them figure out what their goals are and then actually achieve their goals. You have seen her on the Today Show, NPR, CNN, of course, in the New York Times, because she is the best-selling author of 6 books, including Organizing from the Inside Out, Time Management from the Inside Out, and Never Check Email in the Morning, which I really try to do and never succeed at. Julie, welcome.
It's so great to be here with you, Jean. Thanks for that nice intro. I do remember our Florida experience as vividly as it was a couple weeks ago.
Exactly. Boy, you made those people a lot of money.
Yeah.
Julie organized the heck out of this garage and turned what looked to me like a $20 garage sale into a several $1,000 garage sale. So it was. Let's talk about the pandemic and how the pandemic has changed the process of planning for people or changed what they want out of their lives. It was a big reset.
Oh yeah, huge reset. And I think it really had a very noticeable to me in my work with clients, a very noticeable impact. I think one way it really impacted people was because so much was out of our control for a couple of years, shockingly out of our control in a way that we'd never not had control before. You were forced to stay at home. You could no longer do any of the routines you were used to. And we kept thinking it was going to get better soon. And then that timeline kept moving and moving and moving. And so I would say that the primary change that I have seen is that people are not in a bad way, but in a good way. They don't have as gigantic, they're not trying to overfill their goal plate. They're like, a couple goals is enough. I don't need 14 goals. I don't even need 10 goals. I'm going to focus on 1 or 2 or 3 things where it really matters. My health and well-being, my relationships with others, maybe my economic security, so that they're not trying to do so much. That's 1. And 2, surprisingly, people have become more patient. The pandemic was a forced exercise in patience beyond what anyone thought they were capable of. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if everybody listening can remember, but anything that you wanted to do, there were like 42 obstacles in your way to do it. Even the basic logistics of getting groceries, or I want to do this, and there's so many things in my way, I cannot get done what I planned today or tomorrow. So patience was one of the silver lining outcomes.
When I think about the pandemic, I think it made me into a list maker, right? Because
Mm,
when I was going to, I'm always one of those people, I like to go to the grocery store. It's a little bit of an adventure to me. I shop the aisles, I buy what looks good. The pandemic made me slow down, make a list, decide what I'm going to cook for the next 10 nights because I don't want to go
right,
back to the grocery store. I don't want to leave my house
right,
yet again. I
right.
want to stay in this cocoon. Do you think that the slowing down and the pairing of our lists of goals actually was helpful? Is it from your perspective as somebody who helps people achieve the things they want, is it better to have fewer things to focus on?
100%. I mean, I was advising for decades, every New Year's resolution, don't try to do too much. Pick one or two things that will have the biggest impact. And once you get those going, then you make the space for other goals. But the pandemic sort of was an experiential forcing of that. And I see it as a total benefit. People are less, they're even more tolerant with themselves. Like I have clients who say, oh, I'm going to get healthy in 2023. That was a big one, by the way. Everybody wants to get back in shape and get back on some kind of exercise routine or some kind of eating routine. And people set that goal and they're not like, oh, it's the second week of January and I haven't done it, so I'm giving up. People are like, oh no, I said I was going to do that. I have all the way to the end of January to like even ramp onto this. It's like they're patient. That is an absolute benefit because it's the only way to change behavior or to achieve anything is more singular focus rather than multiple focus. It
From
just,
a
we can
financial
only do so much at once. Yes, sorry. Hmm.
No, from a financial standpoint, I like to hear that because one of the frustrations with making financial change is that it doesn't come quickly. When we look at people who are trying to shed a few pounds, if you do the right thing for 2 or 3 days, you'll see a pound come off the scale. If you do the right thing in your financial life for 2 or 3 days, nothing much is going to happen, right? You
Right,
need to give it
right.
weeks and months in order to see meaningful progress.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yeah, it's really good. And also it's more concrete, right? Like that's the other thing is that as people are setting goals now, and I think the pandemic was a forcing mechanism, stripped everything away. If all of this were gone, what really matters to me? And then those goals are becoming more concrete on the financial. I'm sure that you see that, which is I want to have X amount of savings as an emergency fund, or I want X amount as my baseline so that I can feel I can retire, or, stop working full time. And, so the more concrete a goal is, the more measurable, the more doable.
You have a methodology that involves approaching life from the inside out. Can you explain what it is and how we use that to set and achieve goals?
Sure. So my whole philosophy about organizing anything, your finances, your space, your time, your schedule, your sock drawer, anything, is to that every system has to be designed based on what you're trying to achieve. What is your goal? Why do it? What is your purpose in doing this? Why do I want my sock drawer organized? Because I want to be able to like grab a pair of matching socks in 3 seconds rather than have to like spend 15 minutes trying to find a pair. I'm trying to save time. So what is my goal? And then what is my unique way of thinking and my style so that the system is sustainable for who you are, because each person is very unique, and how you want your spices or your finances organized or whatever is different than me, than the next person, than the next person. So we're organizing anything from the inside out is based on your unique way of thinking, your unique habits, and your goals. And when you define that first, Then you can build a system and you know what the system should look like. It's like, that feels right to me. That is who I am. That is doable for me. And as a coach and an organizer, a time management coach, anything that people want to achieve, they're like, just tell me how I should like fit in exercise every day. And I was like, there's no one answer. Why do you want to exercise? What is your life like? Do you have the patience for a 40-minute workout? Or really, there's no way you're going to do that, but you can count on 8 minutes a day. Are you a morning or evening person? I want to be a morning person. Let's not build a system about who you want to be. It's who are you now? So you work from the inside out and it becomes very doable and it feels easy to maintain.
When we're thinking about the why, we have a lot of women and a lot of guys too from our message board. When we're thinking about the why, I know the why for a lot of women is, especially when it comes to our finances, is I want to be secure. I don't want to run
Mhm.
out of money, right? And that's that's a why, but it's also a fear. Is fear helpful when it comes to conquering our goals?
You know, it's a very interesting question. So I couldn't give you a categorical no, but in my experience as a coach, a positive reward is far more motivating and easy to stay with than a negative one. Because a negative one is filled with judgment and self criticism, which then paralyzes us because we're like, how come I don't have any retirement? How come I allowed myself to gain 20 pounds? How come I'm afraid if I keep gaining weight, I'm going to like be sick? It's fear for the future as opposed to a reward for the moment, a sense of control, a sense of I'm taking care of myself. If it's security, financial security, like how good does it feel to like, I don't know, stop spending that frivolous money on, online purchases and then move that money into this bank account that I'm watching grow. And I took that $12 and I put that there. And I took the next $12 and now it's 24. And that's a way of taking care of myself as opposed to warding off some crisis that is of my own making, which is like, how motivating is that? It's just judgmental.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that you use the example of watching your money add up because for me, and I'm a devoted saver, especially coming out of my divorce when I was feeling not so stable and not so secure. Saving
Mhm.
and then watching the money add up made me feel better, right? That
Yeah.
in and of itself, visiting my savings was very, very rewarding. I know that you coach people and work with people at all levels of their careers, but as you get people who are 50s, 55, starting to think about the next phase of their
Mhm.
lives. What sort of goals and roadmaps do you find they are looking for most often?
Yeah, I would say that at that age, there's the kind of roadmap is they want to usually are starting to think about how much longer do I want to work? How much longer do I need to work? And how I truthfully, like mid 50s, people are like, I don't have the energy that I did to work this hard. So on their jobs, just to look inwards for a minute, one of the things they're doing is trying to build their skills to get work done through others, to build their delegation skills, to work smarter rather than harder, which is a surprisingly difficult shift for high achieving people who got where they got because they work so hard. Then they start running out of steam and it's like, oh, but you don't have to work as hard because you're not new at this anymore. You have 3 decades of experience. Trust that. You know the right direction. You've seen it so much. You've failed and succeeded so many times. You don't have to succeed through hard work. You can succeed now based on what your knowledge. And that is the first giant shift. And then once they're doing that, then it's like, oh, work, I can stay in this job, but not work as hard. But that's also preparation for when do I want to stop, or do I want to go part-time, or do I want to get out of full-time work and go to part-time or consulting work, and to start planning what is my life going to look like after work or after this phase of full-time building my career. And those are the questions, and trying to imagine what that they want that to look like. Yeah.
When you get to the point of people where they are imagining this to look like, and I know that you've done, there's this burgeoning field of retirement coaching, helping people adjust to the idea of retirement, life in retirement, what retirement looks like. Well, when you get to the point where you're helping people imagine it, how do you do that for people who aren't sure? I mean, I would put myself in that boat. Like, I have no idea what the next phase of my life looks like, and I don't even know how I would begin to imagine it.
Yeah. So I guess there's the practical side, which is your territory, which is like, how am I going to afford it? Right. Like, and just to be able to imagine that. But beyond that is, what will life look like? And here's my philosophy and kind of how we work together, which is I really believe every human being is a unique individual with no two people are the same. And everyone has a unique set of skills, interests, talents, and experiences that make up who they are. And we are all of these things as we grow up, and then but we funnel that all in and make some edits and choices when we get into a career track. One of the first things to do is tune back into your whole self. You probably had interests beyond whatever it is that you do, each person, it's like, and you poured some of who you are into a track, but that's just one container for you, you know, and there are other containers that can either express other parts of yourself that you couldn't indulge because you had to be responsible, you had to make a living, you had to buy a house, you had to raise kids, all of that. But like, these are real parts of yourself. So tune back into the whole of you. Sometimes we go all the way back to, what did you love when you were in junior high school, when you were in high school?
Mm-hmm.
What
I
did you
didn't like
used to
anything when I
love?
was in junior high school, just by the way.
Oh,
I
probably
didn't
not
like
alone in that,
myself
right?
in junior high school. Like, let's
Exactly.
go back to, can we go back to like
Let's
fifth
go
grade?
better time.
Fifth grade was better.
Yeah, you're right. Middle school, no one wants to go back to those years. They were the worst years of a human life. So, what did you use to love? Where were your passions? What little inklings of interest? Just sort of tune back in. That's one thing. And see what kind of lights your face, what lights your energy. And that starts to give you some multiple highways to sort of explore and pursue. And maybe I have clients who, like, there was another major that they were interested in, but they picked a practical one. And why not explore that in your retirement? It's because it will be fulfilling to you. If this is an area of interest and passion, you don't have to get a degree just for a career. I think education is wasted on the young anyway, right? It's probably more valuable the older you are. You appreciate history, you appreciate how the world operates. So that's one thing, is to really think about that and start thinking about different parts of yourself that haven't had their turn. And then what could that look like? That could look like a different career. It could look like education. It could look like traveling, or there's so many things. So tune into the whole of you.
Amy says she likes her career, but it's always funded her interests outside of work. She says, bring on retirement. Amy, I am sure that there are a lot of people like you. And by the way, everybody watching, if you've got questions for Julie or you want to chime in, of course, we welcome that. That shift that you're describing, Julie,
Mhm.
sounds to me a lot like the shift that happens when our kids leave the nest, right? There's one track that
Yes.
you've been on for such a long time, and now you're allowing yourself, because you have more space in your day and more space in your brain, to think about these things. And yeah, you're right. We have to afford them. That's one reason that we talk a lot on this show about the concept of protected lifetime income, that if you can couple Social Security with a stream of income, whether it comes from a pension or an annuity, that will just cover your fixed expenses,
Mhm.
then you give yourself the opportunity to explore these options without worry, without financial worry.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if anybody can be in that position, that really opens up so many more possibilities. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just wondering, as you have helped people transition from one phase of their life to the next, I mean, some of this, because I've watched your organizational work in the past, I know involves paring down a little bit, maybe
Mhm.
going to a smaller house, maybe getting rid of the stuff. Do you find that process for people to be freeing, or do you find that they miss the stuff?
It's a good question. So I do ultimately think it is freeing. I think if you approach it again with a positive motivation that you are I think of decluttering, which is really what we're talking about. It's not even organizing, right? It's decluttering. And for everybody listening, like I really define organizing and decluttering very differently. They're different processes, they're different purposes. You organize is just to create a system that gives you access to what you use and love and need to operate your life. Decluttering is about identifying what is obsolete in your life or your space and releasing it to make room to move forward. So if you're nearing retirement, you have undoubtedly accumulated for years objects, papers, information, souvenirs of different stages of your life, awards, accolades, clippings, projects that are sitting in piles that you never finished, all kinds of stuff. So if you go systematically through that and you think you are making space for a new chapter that you can get excited about. I'm making space for security. I'm making space for creativity. I'm making space for relationships, like a theme. You need a theme in order to declutter. Nobody declutters into a vacuum. No one lets go of anything without reaching for something else. So if you define the theme of your retirement, by the way, that's another kind of tip or strategy is we may not know what we want to be doing in the next chapter, but we often have a feeling that we want it to feel like. We want it to feel free. We want it to feel full. We want it to feel energizing. We want it to feel um, interesting. Like name a theme, and then you declutter to make space for that theme. Once you've decluttered, then you have the space to think and imagine what could that theme of freedom look like or security, what does it look like, but you can never figure it all out if you're bogged down with stuff that's from the past. There's no room for the future. So it's really liberating as
It's
long as you do it through a positive lens.
Yeah, it sounds incredible, and it makes me want to, start taking things off my plate in order to make room for other exciting things. We've got some questions. Uliana is interested in, how do you overcome the transition to a more senior role and imposter syndrome, to feeling like you're not you?
Yeah, Oleana, thanks for that question. And Karen, I see you out there. So hi there. It's an old friend too.
Aw.
Karen, it's nice that you joined. Um, so that imposter syndrome, which I think you can carry that your whole life. Always feel like, I don't know how they let me in here. What am I doing here? And if anyone finds out, I really have no idea what I'm doing. So as a coach, I can tell you 80% of the people that I work with, no matter how accomplished they are, experience that. I don't know what primitive thing that is tied to, but it's so universal, right? Some tribal thing like, do I
Yeah.
belong or not? So put it in its place. It's not just you. And like, even the CEOs feel that way. Everybody feels that way. Most people do. Rare not to. Secondly, to transition to a senior role, I think you wouldn't even have the opportunity for a senior role if you weren't demonstrating success in the role that you've been in. Why would anybody give you that opportunity? And then the key is to internalize your experience, to know, just think like, how much have you seen that the people coming up that are new in their careers or 5 years in or 10 years in have not seen? So if you can just trust based on your own evidence that's all around you, that you know what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier to shed the imposter syndrome. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It's in what you've done, but internalize and trust that, and then learn, Liana and everybody else, that the skill of transitioning to a senior role and enabling other people to getting work done through others rather than your own sweat is a set of skills. It does not come naturally. You have to learn how to give direction in a way that sets people up for success. And delegation skills are the hardest of the time management skills to develop. You lose control. You can not get it right. By the time I explain it, I could have done it myself. It always comes back wrong. These are what happens. But there's practical skills that counterbalance that. So just know you have to build new skills, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And but don't expect them to come naturally. You got to seek them out and learn how to do it. It does not come naturally to most people. Delegation.
Dervil says financial planning from the average 9 to 5 job is almost impossible these days due to the higher cost of living. How do persons maneuver this? I'm going to take this one actually, Julie. So when we talk about planning for your retirement, one of the things that surveys have shown half of people have never done is figure out what life in retirement is actually going to cost them. And that's where you have to start, because if you don't have an end point, then you're thinking about this in an unreal way. And the goal is to figure out, okay, what does this life look like? How much do I have now that will support that, coupled with Social Security? And what is the gap that I have to fill? And when you know that gap, then you can come up with a plan with levers that you can adjust that will help you get to the answer, right? So you can figure out, oh, well, I have to work a couple of years longer than I thought I was going to work. Or if I sell my house now and downsize a couple of years before I was actually planning on it, I've got an extra $100,000 that I can put to work, and it's going to help me. And that's why I think that the process of finding a financial advisor 10 years out from retirement, if you've never had one, who can help get you on this plan is really, really important. But I also think, Julie, that what we're talking about in both cases is setting a goal and achieving a goal. And as we started this conversation, and I wanted to round back to it, you started talking about some basic rules of goals, the fact that they should have deadlines, the fact that they should be measurable. Can you talk about the whole goal process a little bit?
Sure. So, a goal is kind of an end point, right? It's like, I want to have X amount of money. I want to lose weight. I want to feel healthy. Like, and always tied into the why. But any achievable goal has to be translated to, what does that actually look like in visible, measurable, observable terms? observable behavior. And the more concrete and observable, so it's not a state of being, but like, what does that mean? I was just working with a client today who was coaching right before this, who is not ready for retirement. She's still in building, but she's senior. She's in her late 40s, I think, and has built a company. And she wants to be more like more visible thought leadership out there. And I was like, well, what does that mean? I want to do more speaking. I want to do more writing. I want to be more visible. And I was like, okay, how many speeches? Or how many people do you want in the like? Do you want to have been exposed to 1,000 people a year, which could be one speech with 1,000 people in the audience, or 10 speeches with 100 people in the audience? What are you? Why? Visibility for clients for her company. That's why. So it's not for making money. That's the why. And then, so how many in that target audience do you want to reach in a year? And then you have, oh, we need to be speaking to a minimum of 1,000 people. We're going to measure that. Speech number one, there's 250 people in the audience. Great. We're a quarter of the way to the goal. So that's what I mean by like translate it to something that you can observe, you can measure, and you can answer, I did it or I didn't. It's yes or no. And it's the behavior that gets you to your goal. It's not just the goal, it's what behavior will then you can observe and say, yes, no, I did that or I didn't. I saved the money and put it in my saving account or I didn't. Yes or no. So simple, concrete, measurable, observable. That's what goals need to be translated to in order to operationalize them.
Do
Can't be
you
big.
find it's important for people to always have a goal, to always be moving toward something? I mean, I remember seeing some research earlier in my career about runners. I'm a runner, and the fact that for runners, marathon training was more satisfying than the marathon itself, because once they finished the marathon, they were kind of let down, like it was over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this idea of always having something that you're reaching for.
I really believe that. And I will say that the pandemic also gave us that lesson. Because if you look at 2020, where like you couldn't have any goals, and 2021, where people were like, I can't control anything. There was a global state of malaise, kind of despair, complacency. People were unmotivated because they couldn't feel that they could make plans. And I remember right around 20, at the end of 2020, I started to advise people to just to get motivated, even to go to their jobs every day, where everything was same, and you can't make plans. I was like, make a goal of a skill that you want to develop. That is in your control. And the minute people started to name one goal, they sat up straighter and they had something to look forward to. We need that. We need to strive. It's in human nature. Get you up in the morning and get you excited about moving.
You just explained the entire sourdough phenomenon, I think, right? The sourdough starter, like everybody wanted to learn how to do something, and we all learned how to bake bread. So we're going to be talking an awful lot on this show this year about your bucket list, about having a bucket list, about achieving the bucket list. And so I'm going to ask all of my guests this very same question as we wrap. What's on your bucket list?
Oh, my bucket list. I thought you meant the guests in our chat.
No, you're the what is on your bucket list?
So I think on my bucket list, what I came into 2023, I've been running my own business for 35 years. I still love it. It's still interesting and engaging, and there's new stuff every day. Especially in this changing world, people need new ways of learning to get organized and managing their time. And we've been very, very busy, and it's wonderful. But the way I've run my business, it's always been very hard for me to plan travel too far in advance. And so in my more senior Uliana role with a really good team, made the commitment that I'm going to pre-plan 2 really fabulous trips every year that I have decided by the end of this month. I'm going to pick 10 days that I'm going to go to Portugal, and a week that I'm going to go, I think, somewhere to, those islands between France and England. It's Guernsey and Jersey. It's this beautiful area. And I'm going to just, but the bucket list is to pre-plan and pre-schedule. And no matter what happens, even if a client wants me, those weeks are reserved and I have that to look forward to. And that is different for me. And that's a new way
I
of
love
taking
it.
control of my time. Yeah.
I love it. Julie Morgenstern, as Fahad said, this information is absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much for spending this time today with me and with all of us. For those people who are watching, if they want more information about you, which book should they read next? Where can they
Yeah.
go to get it?
Sure. And thanks everybody for joining. Thanks, Jean, to you for these great questions. So there's any way you can get to me. You can come to my website, juliemorgenstern.com, and you can find more about my books and blog and services and all of the stuff that we offer. Also, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name, Julie Morgenstern Solutions, our company, and I am active on LinkedIn, and those are probably the 2 most direct ways. And also you can follow me on Instagram, Julie Morgenstern, same name, any location.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Happy 2023. And for everybody who's watching, if you'd like more information on this conversation in particular, you can go to protectedincome.org/Morgenstern. Julie, thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Jean. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks, Jean.